I'm going to talk about the AFC because the AFC really has been alarmingly stagnant. It's very much the same year after year. And by the way, I want to be clear. I'm not complaining. I'm not bringing this up as a negative thing. I just think it's alarming. I think it's notable because this isn't typically how the NFL goes, right? This isn't typically how the NFL looks year after year. But the AFC rather is always the same. It feels. It starts at the top, and so I really want to go top to bottom here, from the top of the pyramid to the foundation of the pyramid. I want to talk about how the AFC is always the same. It really starts at the top. Kansas City consistently is in the Super Bowl. They've won the AFC and made the Super Bowl 4 of the last 5 years. They've been in the AFC Championship game 6 years in a row. They're likely to do it again. They play the Texans. That's a very winnable game for the Chiefs. So they'll probably be present in Championship weekend again. And they'll probably, if history holds, win again at home and make the Super Bowl. And for all we know, win it again. The division winners. So it's Kansas City. First reason why it feels like everything's the same every year is because Kansas City wins every year, the same way the Patriots did. The division winners, Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Houston, all won their divisions last year. And this year, they all won their playoff game. All the home teams won, and they all advanced to the divisional round. So the divisional round this year is exactly the same as the last year. Only difference is the Bills and the Texans are flipped, right? And I suppose the Bills are playing at home this time. But still, those 4 teams are the same as they were last season. The Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Texans, those 4 teams are the same as they were last year. They won their division again. They won a playoff game again. And that really falls on the wild card teams, right? Because the wild card teams failed again. We almost had a breakthrough. I really thought it was the Chargers. I was really excited for the wild card round for a variety of reasons. And really, a lot of those games weren't that interesting outside of the Commanders and Buccaneers game. And I suppose the Rams running up on the Vikings last night was a bit of a thrill to watch as well. But the wild card teams, right? I really thought it would be the Chargers that would be that new, fresh, flashy team, right? They played the Texans, an injured Texas team with 7 losses. They felt like that week 4 seed that was just bound to get run over by the best wild card team. And then the exact opposite occurred, right? The Chargers got run over. They put up a very poor performance out there. They had one of their worst games that they've had in weeks. They fell to the Texans 32-12 in that loss. Justin Herbert threw 4 interceptions, right? Chargers had a terrible game. But I really thought that they were going to be that new, fresh, flashy team that pushes past the Texans, qualifies for the divisional round. They haven't done that in a long time, right? Since Phillip Rivers. Get to the divisional round, play the Chiefs, right? Division rivalry. They'll have an opportunity to maybe win it and go to the AFC Championship game. I thought the Chargers were that team, that new, fresh, flashy team, and they just weren't. The Broncos were never going to be that. They got blown out by the Bills. We expected that to happen. The Broncos were a plucky 7 seed that was just happy to be there. The Steelers were never going to do that. They were on a fantastic, insane losing streak, and I almost talked about the Steelers in this episode. The big-time losing streak. They lose to the Ravens twice in a month. Again, in the playoffs, they get decimated as well. So it really had to have been the Chargers. But what's important to note is that there really wasn't that wild card team that felt like they could make something happen. The NFC, on the other hand, the Vikings could have made something happen, right? They were 14-3. The NFC, by the way, feels different every year, but the Commanders could have been that team. They pushed through past the wild card barrier and into the divisional round, and we didn't have that breakthrough. So again, the Chiefs win all the time. The Bills are always right up at the top. The Ravens are consistently right up at the top. The Bengals have been in the fold sometimes as well. The Texans now have become the team that's dominating the AFC South. The AFC seems to be remaining the same year after year, which again isn't a bad thing, because the Chiefs and the Bills and the Ravens are fantastic, and at least one divisional round game and the conference championship game are bound to be complete thrillers. But the AFC is just almost a fact at this point. It stays the same most of the time. So the question is then, who could break through, right? If the AFC is the same year after year, then the question to combat that is who could break past their respective barriers. Now, there's really 3 barriers, right? There's a barrier from being an AFC championship contender to a Super Bowl contender. Right now, the Chiefs really lock everyone else out of the Super Bowl. Bills haven't been there. Ravens haven't been there recently. When I say recently, I mean those last 6 years that the Chiefs have been dominating the AFC. So if you're the Bills or you're the Ravens, right, those are really the 2 teams that are trying to push back into the Super Bowl, trying to break through, push the Chiefs out of the way, get back into the Super Bowl. That's one barrier that needs to be broken. Another barrier is a group of divisional round teams that could potentially push into or division winners perhaps that could push into the AFC Championship game, right? So the Texans, they win a wild card game and then they get blown away by the Ravens. They win a wild card game, they'll probably get blown away by the Chiefs. Are the Texans, and I suppose this could still happen, but are the Texans capable of, or the Chargers, another great example, Steelers, Broncos, are those teams capable of pushing past the divisional round barrier and making the AFC Championship game? And then the question is, what kind of wild card teams could be new or fun or interesting, right? Who could win a division that hasn't won in a while? Who could qualify for the wild card round like the Broncos did and make some noise? The Texans are the first team I want to bring up because they seem like the most likely team next season to make something like this happen. A healthy Houston Texans team with their quarterback, with their pass rush, with that overall roster, they have all of the pieces that they need to make a deep postseason run, right? They could be the new face that reaches the AFC title game or even the Super Bowl. I really thought that at the beginning of the year. I thought the Texans would be the AFC Championship game. I thought they'd lose, but I thought they'd be there, and I thought that they had an opportunity truly to go to the Super Bowl. Maybe lose by 8 in the AFC Championship game, right? Texans would have been right there. Everyone got hurt, it felt like. Nico Collins missed time. Tank Dell got hurt. Stephon Diggs got hurt. He's out for the year as well. And Texans got hurt. It felt like this is a lost season. They'd be the 4th seed in the AFC with little hope of pushing much past that. Of course, they surprised everybody. They beat expectations by beating the Chargers in that wild card game the other day. But the Texans, they seem like a healthy Texans team is capable of making the AFC Championship game and contending for a Super Bowl right now with how young they are, especially. The Texans are that team, in my opinion. They could still beat the Chiefs, but looking forward, it feels like the Texans are that team that could potentially make something happen in the future. The Chargers have a lot of work to do. When it comes to supplying Justin Herbert, he's 0-2 in playoff appearances. He didn't quite have the weapons that he needed to. He had Ladd McConkey, but that was really it. J.K. Dobbins, but that was really it. It didn't feel like the Chargers quite had the weapons to supply Justin Herbert with the ability to win this playoff game. So they have work to do when it comes to roster composition, but they have their quarterback, they have their coach in Jim Harbaugh, they have a great team, they made the playoffs, they had a great season, right? LA is in position to run it back, make the playoffs again, and succeed from there. I honestly don't know if the Chargers will go to the playoffs next year because the AFC is very convoluted. There's 8 great teams, there's 10 good teams, right? I think the Bengals might get in. I think the Broncos will probably get in. Maybe the Chargers could get in over the Steelers. Maybe that's how it goes. But still, I think the Chargers, they're in position to run it back. Maybe they spring a wild card upset next year. Maybe they win the division next year. All important questions that I'm interested to see the answers to play out. The Bengals are another fantastic example. They made the Super Bowl recently. They lost to the Rams. They played like a playoff team down the stretch, and with a better start to the year, maybe they could return to peak efficiency in Super Bowl contending form. If they had beaten the Patriots in week 1, this is a completely different season and a completely different playoffs because they would have been the 7th seed. They would have traveled to Buffalo, and there's no guarantee that result would have been the same. Maybe the Bengals flip that result. Maybe they win it. Maybe they go play the Chiefs. Maybe they win it. Bengals are capable of a lot. They are like the Texans, where even if the Bengals aren't winning divisions, they're capable of doing that, and they're capable of making the playoffs and making a lot of noise once they get there. Cincinnati, great example of a team that's capable of pushing past the current barriers in place in the AFC. Denver is a rising power as well, especially if Nix is firmly the solution at quarterback. They're going to have the money, and they kind of already have built a great roster around him, but they're going to have the money to build in the salary cap space to build a fantastic roster around Bo Nix because he was a low draft pick on his rookie contract who just so happens to be massively overachieving. So Broncos, they're in great position as well. They're a wild card team capable of springing an upset perhaps moving forward. But the Goliaths appear to be here to stay. Those Goliaths being those 4 division winners. The Ravens, the Texans, the Bills, the Chiefs. They seem to be here to stay. Most of the best quarterbacks in the league are in this conference, and most of them are in that top 4. You got Mahomes, Allen, Lamar. You got Joe Burrow. You got C.J. Stroud. The AFC is top-heavy. Like I said, there's 8 great teams. There's maybe 10 good teams. There's probably less than that. It's probably 6 great teams, 10 good teams, 10 playoff contenders for sure. But potentially there's 5+ Super Bowl contenders when everyone in the AFC is healthy, which is never going to happen. But the Chiefs can contend for Super Bowls. The Bills, the Ravens can do it. The Texans, when they're healthy, I think can do it. and maybe it's the Bengals as well. Maybe the Chargers are in that fold, right? When they sort of reload and retool a little bit. For now, though, it seems that the same old results are going to continually occur, where the Chiefs win it all. At least the Chiefs win the AFC. The team that's closest to them to do it, to beat them, is the Ravens or the Bills, and then the Texans just win the AFC South because, as us Colts fans know, there's absolutely no sense of fight in the AFC South other than the Texans. We don't really seem to be close to seeing any part of that change, right? We don't seem to be close to seeing the paradigm in the AFC of the Texans and the Ravens and the Bills and the Chiefs winning all the time. We don't seem to be nearing a change in that. Now, again, the Chargers, the Texans, the Bengals, the Broncos, all very capable of pushing past their respective barriers. It just doesn't really seem like that the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, or Texans are going to fall off anytime soon. And that's what's going to make the AFC insanely good. And it's going to make the AFC very difficult to play through, which is unfortunate for teams like the Colts. But it's great for fans of football because the AFC playoffs for years to come are going to be an absolute thrill as the Bengals elevate, the Chargers elevate, the Broncos elevate, the Texans maybe elevate. Maybe the Colts work back into that area of the standings. AFC is great. It's fantastic. It's remaining stagnant, and I'm excited to wait and see really when that starts to change.